Yarrow Kubrin, Keller Williams Realty, riffing and rambling with my inspection series. So the second most common inspection that most people get for property is a pest inspection. And what a pest inspection does is it will evaluate a home or an exterior structure, maybe it's a pool house, maybe it's a barn, and it will evaluate it for a couple things. It will check to see whether there's any termites, wood-boring beetles, rodents, and finally dry rot. Now, dry rot is a fungus that attacks wood, typically wood that's unpainted, and it will eat away at the wood so that it becomes soft and crumbly. And there's a specific treatment for that, which is called Tyborg, and it's not the type of chemical that can be acquired at Home Depot by your normal do-it-yourself weekender. So Tyborg treats fungus damage to wood members. It's a regulated chemical, and you have to have a pest inspection company or a pest remediation company in order to acquire that chemical. Now, when we say pest inspection, most people assume that it covers things that are mostly related to animals. But in fact, dry rot, which is not related to termites, wood-boring beetles, or rodents, dry rot is the most common thing that we find on a pest inspection. Pest inspections will also check for active infestations, and they'll also look for history of previous infestations from termites. They'll look for cellulose debris underneath a house, and so they're really important to have. Some lenders will require a pest inspection, some won't. But I always think that my clients need to have a pest inspection, because otherwise, how do they know what they're buying and what the cost might be to take care of the condition of that home? The most common thing is to find a deck. Decks, which are technically attached to a house, often come back with a lot of dry rot on them. Decks typically don't get painted or stained as regularly as they should be, and as a result, that wood becomes a little more vulnerable to this fungus, which creates dry rot and will cause the deck members to be eaten away. It's not uncommon for even a $200,000 home to have $10,000 worth of dry rot on a deck, and so it can be a very expensive thing, and so it's always important, I think, for people to know that before they complete the purchase of a transaction. So pest inspections cover dry rot, termites, beetles, rodents, and what they do is they send an inspector out who goes around, checks the entire outside of the house, goes underneath the house, and they will poke at the wood to see if there's any dry rot in them, and then they will give you an inspection report and then a separate estimate to cure any of the conditions. So in a pest inspection, there are a couple different categories of conditions. In a pest inspection, they will identify what's called Section 1 items, and then there are Section 2 items. Section 1 items are dry rot, active infestation of beetles. Say you've got the windowsill and someone left the window open and it got water damage, they will write about that. Section 1 items, in my opinion, are sort of must-dos. Now, you can buy a house without fixing the Section 1 items, but if they don't get fixed after the close of escrow, the most likely thing is that the cost of those items is going to go up over time as they're sort of neglected or put to the wayside. I've had clients buy a house where there was $600 in Section 1 items, and 7 or 8 years later, when they went to sell it again, it was $6,000. So it really makes a lot of sense to get those items corrected and not put them off and forget about them, because they will come back to bite you in the hindquarters. So Section 1 items are the things that would consider dry rot, bugs, the must-dos. Section 2 items are recommendations. Now, a lot of these recommendations are really minor. You could get around to them, you could put them on your honey-do list, maybe you'd hire a handy person to do it later, maybe you never do them. Some of them are very minor, but some of them are also really good guides for what it will take to be a good steward for this property. Sometimes it includes lowering the vegetation or removing vegetation away from the home, but Section 2 is not what I would consider to be a must-do. So pest inspections, Section 1s, Section 2s, my personal opinion is it's always good to have the Section 1 items addressed, ideally in an escrow or at the close of escrow. Thanks.